So thank you for taking the time to speak with me today, and nice to meet both of you.
Thank you for having us. Nice to meet you.
Meet you, and congratulations on your film. That's super exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I haven't been able to watch your wonderful film yet. I have read, the synopsis and stuff, but I'd love to hear from each of you kind of your own take on, describing the film to audiences. Whoever wants to go first.
Right.
Danielle, take it away.
Oh, okay. You got me. My take on the movie, I would have to say, is the modern day life of, I would say maybe a millennial or my age range, what we go through with what really happens in marriages and fighting between a marriage and also, I get to play, which is amazing, a Latina actress and a Latina character who is out here trying to go after her dreams and be a writer, but then also have a marriage, and then things happen. And it's an amazing rom-com where it teaches about the beautiful aspect of therapy and getting through life, and it's hilarious, and it's so needed right now. I think it's going to hit so many people and touch so many lives, so I'm very excited.
I wanted to hear her thoughts and reactions first, because I'm more technical. I wrote it, and then with the help of Tom Nelson, who's the creator, and then I co-wrote it with our director, Cynthia Garcia Williams. And just as the basic tenet of it, it's two couples who get married by a wacky, zany reverend who 10 years later find out that he wasn't licensed, and so their marriage is a fraud. And now they get to decide, after the ups and downs of marriage and the whirlwind of relationships, do they want to stick together, like stick it out and stay together, or part ways? And so that's what we see. And we see these friendships that develop between men and women, and which is something that we really love seeing, because we don't often see that bromance on screen, and we get to see the males expressing themselves just as much as the females. So it was wonderful to work with all of the cast and crew, and really to bring this to life. It was phenomenal.
I want to add on that. That is really cool. It's a great point that you made there, Ray, because usually you'll see from a male perspective, let's say in a marriage or in a relationship, and you'll see that bromance, or in a woman's, but to have that both in a movie is amazing, because you literally, I'm in the movie and I didn't know who to side with. There was times where I was like, you know what, girl, I'm going with your husband on this point, which is awesome, because I feel like it's going to relate to such a big community.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It sounds like it allows for a lot of dynamics and some interesting point of view. And yeah, it's kind of like a reset, right? Like, do we want to stick this out, or do we want to pretend this, just kind of go back? And it's pretty fascinating. So Ray, you're one of the writers. How did you kind of come up with this story? What was the origin of it?
So I worked many years ago with Tom Nelson, who's a writer himself and has a few things on Lifetime from way back in the day. And I'm a writer. I have books that are published and an author, so he was like, I think you should write scripts, and I have an idea for you. And he gave me the idea and said, write it and let me check it out, and we'll do a few passes. And so that's how the idea came about. It was not my own, but it was a rendition in the modern times, in the urban times, and it's a cast of people of color. And so we did it with that spin, with that flavor, and that's how it came about.
And so you also mentioned, so I think it was also the director that co-wrote it as well, right?
Yeah, so what happened is, as you write a script and as you develop it, and as you start filming, you realize that things need to be changed.
Yeah.
And Cynthia Garcia Williams, who also has many award-winning short films under her belt, as she was the director, we started working together on writing things and changing things and moving things around, just to make it more concise, make it tighter, make it better in some ways. Originally, there were going to be 3 couples, and we were like, maybe that's not the best way to go with this. Maybe it's 2, right? And so that's how we ended up co-writing and working together on what is the final product.
Yeah. And so because it is like a collaborative thing, Danielle, did you have any kind of collaboration in your character building?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, which I thought was amazing. There were so many times that I saw them discussing stuff, and they really kept me in mind, and even adding my own quirky. I'm Puerto Rican, New York. I'm loud. I'm a little crazy, and there were so many times, and they were like, just go off, go ad lib some stuff, and they really brought me into it as well, which I think is so great um in a story, because I've been acting for a really long time, and I think the best characters for me, my own opinion, not all the actors out there that want to give their opinion, but in my opinion, there's me in every character I do. There's some aspect of me, and that's how I can get behind the character. When I'm so far away from the character, I mean, there has to be something I relate to, and I was just lucky that this one was really close to me. Me and Rachel are like, the lines are blurred.
So if
And
this, oh, go ahead.
just to play off of that a little more, there were times when some of the actors or actresses said, you know what, she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't say that, as they got the feel of who that character was. And we would be like, oh yeah, well, what would she say right here? Right? How would she feel about that?
Right.
And Lisa Vidal, who plays the therapist, we worked actually very collaboratively on her lines. What would this therapist say in when working with a couple? And when talking about marriage therapy, right? And so that ended up, those sessions became really well developed because of her input. So it was collaborative all around.
And just to piggyback on that, you just brought a point to me, which is really cool. I also loved, even though it was a rom-com, we really tried to be, there were so many times I remember this common question was, what would really go on? Like, what would really happen? You know what I mean? Because I'm like, that's what's going to relate to people. We're like, oh my God, I just told my therapist that yesterday. Or, oh my God, yeah, I love my husband so much, but he's annoying, or whatever. We're really like, what is the truth? Because I feel like that's what's relatable, and that's what sells, and that's what really gets to people. And they can be like, oh my God, I see myself in them. And TV entertainment, that's my therapy. That's most people's therapy, right? They're like, oh my God, I can get through this because my favorite character did. So
Yeah, that's wonderfully put and absolutely true. Like, as someone who consumes it all the time, I can absolutely say it's my therapy.
Mhm.
Um, and I love that the realness is there and that you kind of fought to make sure that was present. And so Danielle, you said that this character is very much like you. And you mentioned, I believe you said she was a writer in Hollywood. So how
Yeah.
much of this kind of mirrors your own? I mean, I know you're an actress. I don't know if you're a writer as well, but how much of this mirrors your own life and your experience as kind of a woman of color in entertainment?
Um, I would say I'm not a writer, but to be continued on that. I'm like, I need to do something because I'm a storyteller. I got ideas, and I've always been behind the screen, but like I said, I'm a huge storyteller in my life, and especially growing up in a big Hispanic family, I'm like, you have story for days. And working in this industry as she was, there's a lot of trials and tribulations that the character went through, and so did I. Being the only Hispanic person in my field or on that set, which thank God when I got to set, I was not. Hello. I was like, this is amazing. There's other people of color and we're not fighting for one role. So I think she went through that. I think she had to push through as a woman and to be like, no, I'm going to do this, even though maybe my family doesn't approve, or maybe, this or that, or they think I can't. I get that all day, every day, girl. But I just, put the blinders on and look at my own grass. I don't look at anybody else's grass.
I love that. It's good advice, actually. And how about you, Ray, as far as, your own experiences and working them into the script and the story?
Oh, it's very much my experience as a writer, and and then it expands. Like, I'm a writer, published author, but then this character expands, and she's an influencer, and she's becoming very famous. And how does that play into her own life? How does that play into the life of her relationship and her marriage? And so elements of my experience, my life, of course, is in it, but it goes way beyond me and further. And then, of course, Danielle took that character and brought it to life and turned it into how she read it. And so really pleased with the way she is portrayed in the film: smart, beautiful, talented, ambitious, but also real, emotional, and that's what you're going to see when you get a chance to watch it.
Great. And so it's a rom-com, but it definitely has plenty of dramatic, serious elements,
It's more like a romantic dramedy at this point, right?
Love
There's
that.
some very poignant parts, but also very gut-busting, hilarious parts as well.
And you have a screening in a couple weeks, which is great timing too, because it's also Hispanic Heritage Month. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yep, we're kicking off Latino Heritage Month. So our screening is September 19th. It is a closed screening, but in Hollywood. So we'll get a chance to screen it to family, friends, and distributors, and then see where it goes from there.
Awesome.
I'll say one more thing about that, or two more things. We are also featuring a lot of the nonprofit organizations that cater to women in Hollywood, women in film, Latino Americans. And so they'll be there as well. And they'll be featured and sponsors and things like that. So we're very excited for that to happen.
We'll make sure I get a list of all that to include in the article as well. And so any kind of final thoughts to audiences when they get to eventually, immerse themselves into this world?
I can't wait for you guys to see it. You guys are going to fall in love with these characters as I did. I think, we should just start the merchandise now. I see I see notebooks, you know what I mean? All about Rachel and all that stuff. I think this is the new age, and I think this is needed. And I think we're also really great motivators and people that we can look up to out here right now. We need to see people like that. The characters that are in this movie need to be seen, need to be portrayed, and also they're inspiring. So they inspired me. So I can't wait.
I think We're Not Married is hearty laughter with a side of tears. And so be prepared to feel all the emotions and really fall in love with and in hate with some of the characters and really enjoy the next rom-com, right? The next big rom-com.
The next feel good and a little tear movie. Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. Well, congratulations again. I can't wait to see the film. And thank you so much for both taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.